begin by the roll call.
Reverend Gordon,
Here?
Mr. Arnold,
Here.
Miss Banks,
Here.
Miss Bell,
Here.
Mr. Brown, Miss Carter,
Here.
Miss Clark, Miss Friedman,
Here.
Miss Harding, Miss Howe,
Here.
Miss Mendoza-Locke, Mr. Knowles, Mr. O'Connor, Ms. Rodriguez,
Here.
Mr. Stengel,
Here.
Major White,
Here.
Miss White.
All right, thank you very much. Let's recognize the visitors, and we'll start with Richard.
Richard Arnold.
Kate Gallagher, board staff.
Shannon Hedge, board staff.
Julie Ruck, board staff.
Paul Lewis, Recovery Council.
Tina Layson, board staff. Latrice Flowers, board staff.
Annie Minton, CJCC.
Amy Kirkmeyer, board staff.
All right, thank you very much. So let's have determination of items that will be removed from the consent agenda, and I'll read those items. Meeting minutes of October 17th. Planning and Oversight Committee report, the following items. Treasurer's report, September fiscal year 24 approval, Ohio Moss, ARPA 2 allocations, health officers designations, the Ohio Moss State Opiate and Stimulant Response will remain on the agenda for today. The Lucas County Guardian Services Board additional allocations, the Lucas County Family and Children First Council Parent Advocacy and Leadership Support Program and allocation, and the Lucas County Common Pleas Court ATP funding advance. Those are the items on the consent agenda, and should any of them be removed, other than the one that I mentioned, which is B. Okay, we'll have the motion.
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and second.
Mr. Arnold,
Yes.
Miss Banks,
Yes.
Miss Bell,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Miss Carter,
Yes.
Miss Friedman,
Yes.
Miss Howe,
Yes.
Miss Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Stengel,
Yes.
Major White,
Yes.
Okay, it's approved. Let's go now to Ohio Moss State Opiate and Stimulant Response. Amy.
Hi, everyone. On page 14 in the package, we're following along. The state opioid and stimulant response allocations. The board was notified at the end of September regarding the amount that we will be awarded for this state fiscal year. We had anticipated a reduction in the allocation amount, but we're happy to discover that we received the same amount this year that we also received last year from that funding source through Ohio Moss. So we met internally to review the priorities that were established last year, talk about how the programs have performed over the last year, and then we also talked with the agencies regarding their interest in renewing the programs for this fiscal year. So with that, there were a few changes. Project Direct Link, we kind of right-sized the funding amount for their allocation based on how many they were anticipating to serve in the jail. There's a coordination piece between, or collaboration piece I should say, between the treatment for minority communities that New Concepts oversees, and then the Northwest Ohio Syringe Services Program. Historically, there's been an outreach position funded through New Concepts allocation that the health department actually oversaw. the health department actually requested that that position now be included with their allocation. Still doing the same work, they just requested to oversee that position directly versus the money coming through New Concepts. So we honored that request. And then the only other change in programming was with Unison Skilled Trades program. They had some challenges with the performance of that program, getting clients involved in the program. So we talked with them about providing an allocation to them, but focus it on a gap in services that they identified through their jail-based treatment services that they're currently offering. So just as a refresher, Unison receives a SAMHSA grant that they are providing jail treatment services in the Lucas County Corrections Center. That grant is due to expire in February of 2024. So they had identified a position specific to doing outreach and engagement services that you could use those funds for better services. So we were agreeable to that and then are requesting to allocate funds appropriately. So on page 15 and 16, there are many motions. One, allowing the board to accept the allocation from Ohio MHRSB for the state opioid and stimulant response funds for this state fiscal year, federal fiscal year, sorry. And then individual motions for each of the corresponding agencies for their programs.
Can we take
We can take these together. We can
Okay.
take them all together.
Yeah,
Okay.
we originally presented this at planning and oversight, but there was an abstention for the, as presented in the group. The person who abstained, so we traditionally then take it off the consent, separate the motions, and allow that person to just abstain to that particular motion. Well, that person's not here today, so you can take all of those motions together.
So moved. Second.
Second. Moved and second. Question?
I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
Can I get a better clarification on Unison jail-based services? I mean, you said transitioning.
So Unison currently has a grant through SAMHSA where they're providing treatment services in the Lucas County Corrections Center for inmates in the jail. Through the funding that they currently have and the programming that they're operating, they had identified an additional needed position to help fill some gaps for folks who are transitioning out of the jail that their current grant doesn't fund. So instead of using the funds the same way that they did last year with the skilled trades program, they asked to use those funds in that way.
For the position.
For the position.
Any further? Any other questions? Discussion? All right, we'll have the roll call vote.
Mr. Arnold,
Yes.
Ms. Banks,
Yes.
Ms. Bell,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Carter,
Yes.
Ms. Friedman,
Yes.
Ms. Howe,
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Stengel,
Yes.
Major White.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Passes. All right, next we'll have our director's report. Scott.
Well, thank you. I'm gonna keep my director's report brief because I know that we have some other things that we need to get to today. But I just want to give you an update on a few things. Update on the relocation efforts. So our move is looking more likely in mid-February, somewhere between the 13th of February and 16th of February. We visited the offices today. The workstations are mostly gone now, dismantled. And so we get a better vision for what the site can actually be now that all that clutter is kind of disposed of. Demolition on the one wall we're taking down, we believe that will start next week. All the furniture that we need to have furniture selected and identified and what we need to order by sometime in early to mid-December. The only thing we think we need to order right now is conference room furniture. Basically replicating this room with new tables that are more flexible and more flexible seating. Everything else, all of the other desks, all of the other chairs, everything else in any of the other conference rooms or any of the desks will either be used with what's existing there, or we will cherry pick the best of the stuff here and have that relocated. But I bring that up because we need to come back to you with an allocation to cover the expenses related to the conference room furniture. As timing with the December meeting, it's gonna be really close. So we with the lag time of ordering and all that. So just wanted to put that on your radar, so.
And that's the conference room for, that we'll be moving into.
Yes, which will also double as potential training and give us more flexibility. And we have a vision for tables and chairs that can be easily moved. They can be nested into each other so that we can have different events in that area and set the trainings up differently and have more capacity for everybody to have a table, that kind of stuff.
So what is the amount, and then is it appropriate to add that to our agenda today to approve it if there's such a time crunch?
So, yeah, we could do that. We think it's gonna be about 40,000 for tables and chairs.
Yeah.
And by the way, we're not buying the best stuff in, and we just had, yeah, we're not getting that stuff. But what we do need are tables that are more mobile than this, that can fold down. And also, I'm fairly insistent on modesty panels that are built into the tables. And then chairs that will withstand heavy use, that are easily cleaned, and that are appropriate for the site. So it would be very much appreciated. I know it would take a little pressure off us if you wanted to allocate that money today, and it could be as simple as $40,000, allocates $40,000 in furniture? Equipment, in the FY24 administrative budget. So it would be Mental Health and Recovery Services Board allocates an additional $40,000 in the FY24 administrative budget equipment line.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All right.
Answer my questions.
Mental Health Recovery Services Board allocates an additional $40,000 in the FY24 administrative equipment line, administrative budget equipment line.
All right. You have heard the motion. We've had it moved and we have seconded. Now we'll call for the roll call vote.
Question.
Question.
For sourcing for that equipment, furniture, is that going to be open sourcing? I mean, when I say that, because it's going to be our RFP process, bid process through the county or through us, or how is that?
That's a great question, thank you. All equipment, all work, everything being done there is subject to the project labor agreement, either with Lathrop, which is the construction manager, or the county's PLA agreement. So it's either gonna be one or the other that covers the PLA agreement. So that is covered by the PLA.
This is equipment, that would not be covered by the PLA.
It is covered by the county's PLA.
Labor, I thought that was a labor
Yeah,
agreement,
it's-
not even supplies and equipment.
I've confirmed that today, that it's either gonna be the Lathrop agreement or the county's PLA.
What unions cover furniture sales?
I'm not aware of that. So,
That's a little suspect.
So you say
Can you
later?
get a chair for short people? Any special request.
I concur.
We can give you pillows. I tried the pillows, Scott.
I'm not sure how I respond to that one. I'm still thinking about Calvin's.
The chairs that go up and down, right?
Yeah,
So that
that's
we
what we
can,
need.
the chair that goes up and down.
Again, not trying to be difficult, but you know, I'm always pushing for the inclusion aspect of it, and I do know that supplies and equipment is separate from labor. The PLAs cover contractual labor, contract work, things of that sort, which is supplying equipment and furniture is not a labor, it's a supply, and suppliers are not covered by PLAs.
I was told today that it's going to be covered under one of those two agreements, because I specifically asked that question.
How could if I wanted to question it, I would have to make a request for clarification or something. I just don't think that's accurate.
Okay, well,
Probably labor.
I'm not sure. At the time, they weren't sure which one it was, because it was specifically asked, because it's a subcontract.
There may be a requirement to buy from a union, a unionized supplier. You know, they have the Teamsters to deliver them, things like that.
Delivery, but the purchase fee.
Yeah, I understand, but I mean, you could ask
I'm not
who the
gonna
supplier
spend
is.
here, I'm not gonna spend here over 40,000. I mean, but I just think it just doesn't.
I think it's a legitimate conversation, absolutely, so, I can get clarification for you. However, if you wanna proceed, that's up to you. If you don't wanna proceed, that's really something.
Do we have meetings in December?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that is a question that I wanna ask later on, because frankly, I'll bring it up, it's last on my list. I do not believe that we have a substantive amount of business to bring you in for a meeting of planning and oversight. So what I was going to suggest is that we just push everything into our December 19th meeting, because it's very likely to be routine elements. But if you would like to delay this until that time, it will push the potential of furniture order back. But again, that's really your call.
Can't you handle this, that when you seek the clarification, if there is an opportunity to buy from a minority supplier, that you would at least investigate the possibilities of doing so prior to making acquisition? But the money we can allocate it.
Allocation of the funds is fine. I just want to know the process. That's really, mine is a process question more than an allocation question anyway, yes.
Okay, yeah, we can certainly do that. And
I don't think that requires another motion or anything.
No.
That sounds.
No, we're gonna allocate the dollars. and
We're
then
allocate, that's correct.
Yeah, yep.
I'm good with allocation, but I just want to know about the process.
Oh, sure, yeah. We'd want that to occur anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
I just know there are a few minority-owned companies that are supplying furniture. County actually just purchased some.
Okay. Very good. Good. Any other unreadiness? All
I
right,
call for the vote.
let's vote.
Mr. Arnold?
Yes.
Ms. Banks?
Yes.
Ms. Bell?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Carter?
Yes.
Ms. Friedman?
Yep.
Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Knowles? Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mr. Stengel?
Yes.
Major White?
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you. That is helpful, and I'll make sure we follow up on that.
Thank you.
Also, just a couple of notes. The Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services Director, Lori Chris, resigned effective last Friday. They named an interim, Jonathan Baker, known Jonathan for a very long time. But and his appointment was effective yesterday. No word on a permanent replacement yet. Normally when we see these kinds of things happen, things start to slow down at the State Department for a while. We won't know what that means for us until it actually starts to occur. Thankfully, most of our business has already been handled, as you're aware, because otherwise I'd be recommending we have a December meeting. So there might not be that much that will slow down. Could affect Danny's Place lease, which has been sitting up there for 3 weeks now. Could affect some of the capital stuff, but we won't know until that. I mean, and when I say affect, I mean slow down the approval. All of this is going to be, all that's going to be approved, but
It's a matter of time.
right. What you won't see is people usually going out in different directions because they don't know what the new director will want done. So there'll be a kind of like a holding pattern. Just giving you guys an update on that. Also wanted to touch base with you on the levy campaign because there's a lot of work going on around the levy campaign, and some of you are involved, others will be involved, but we are moving through like the first of 2 steps. We've made it through the Citizens Levy Review Committee twice now. We had an initial presentation because they didn't have a quorum, but they invited us back the next week and they asked specific questions that we were able to answer to their satisfaction. They made recommendation to put our levy on the ballot to the commissioners. The commissioners then last Tuesday had heard the Citizens Levy Review Committee recommendations. We were actually there to give a brief presentation. It went very well. They approved to send the ballot to the auditor's office for certification, and basically the auditor will determine how much money and the millage will officially collect, and then put that information back down to the commissioners. They'll then vote to certify it and send it off to the Board of Elections. The Board of Elections will vote to certify it and send it back to, or send it over to the Ohio Secretary of State. At that point, we will be officially on the ballot. All of that has to happen by January 9th. It's all kind of autopilot. There isn't anything really for us to do right now. We've done everything we can do. The levy committee is continuing to meet every 2 weeks. If you weren't aware, Ms. Christina Rodriguez is our levy chair. We have a group of about 12 folks that are meeting routinely. BJ Fisher of Strategy by Fisher has been engaged to help us develop our campaign. We have a budget of about $96,000 right now, but as you are aware, well, let me tell you a little bit about the levy. So we are planning a 1 mil levy on March 19th, which is the primary for the presidential election. When that passes, we will allow the 0.5 mil levy to expire naturally. So that'll expire in December 31st of 2023. The new millage will start collecting on January 1, 2024. It is expected that we will generate about $9.1 million of, with the 1 mil levy, about $5.3 million more than what we currently collect. Our desire is to use that money to maintain our existing services. As you all are aware, we're deficit spending. To expand programming to youth and older adults, and to fund correctionally based services like at the jail, and develop a co-responder program. That's our messaging. Maintain what we have, build what we know we need to have to get ready for the increased need. So we'll need everybody involved, agencies, board, and not just financial contributions. We're gonna need everybody's advocacy on this. We're gonna need everybody to register their friends and family, agencies registering, clients and family members of clients and staff, and talking up the levy and the value, and then actually going out and actually voting. That's the key, is voting. Yes, by the way. So there'll be more to come on that. We're just in the first quarter of this operation, but this is the exciting part for us. Levy new money is always hard.
So Scott, this is the first time since how long since the transfer?
So first time new millage since 2012. The second request for new millage since 1988. So that's new millage. They've run a couple of replacements in that time, but we haven't sought any new money since 2012, new millage since 2000, or new money since 2012. And then this will be the second time we've requested new millage since 1988.
So this is significant.
This is significant. We're used to passing levies 64 to 68%. Excuse me. New money doesn't pass that high, right? It'd be great if we did, but in a low turnout election like the primary, we're gonna need everybody's vote. And everybody's vote will matter. So we're gonna have to do a really good job of turning out the vote. It's important. And without it, substantial cuts will need to be made.
Which entails all of us working together.
Correct. And on that heel, we are already starting to prepare for what those substantial cuts might look like. We've talked a couple of different times. Jenny's forecast has alluded to the fact that without additional funds, we will need to start making some reductions. And we're preparing for what those reductions might need to look like. Because as you're aware, we have to put them out into the public in our February meeting. So by then we have to have a list of what we plan to do and how we plan to do it. And so we're working internally on that. We will, our plan is to come to you in January and say, these are our broad concepts for what we plan to use for making those recommendations, integrating the priorities that you have established through our community planning process, through our equity and action plan, through our strategic plan, and we will be integrating the new information on our community's health assessment that will be released on December 12th. And from there, we will be making some informed decisions on what the outcomes of those programs might look like, all programs look like, what their spending patterns might look like, and then what internal infrastructure things can we do to reduce the impact on the system. This board has a long history of taking first cuts, and so that will be the first presentation that we will give you, is what do we plan to do internally to offset any cuts to the system. And so there's a lot of work to do between now and then, but I needed to bring that up as a signal that, hey, this is important work that we're doing. It's always important, but it's doubly important now because we don't want to contract, we want to expand. And we want to keep building the quality system that we know is out there. So this is our opportunity. Yes, ma'am.
When you said February, and I'm just like working from memory, so I might be wrong, but we're gonna have to put out 120-day notices reflecting these cuts.
Correct.
Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Those will present the detail around our staff recommendations will be at the February Planning and Oversight Committee meeting
Okay.
related to the
All right.
120-day notices. What we hope to do in January is say, okay, here's where we're heading as far as prioritizing big buckets of services,
Got it.
so that we can get input from you that we're on the right track. Right? We just don't wanna come in first time you see it and not have input prior. And I also want you to understand that, other than a few of us, our staff and this board has not been through a process where they make reductions. So it's not as easy as just presenting a document in front of you and saying, yeah, these are the recommendations. It will be a struggle for us, it'll be a struggle for you, because you didn't sign up to do that, right? There's a few of us that have had to have done it before, and I think there's a few of you that have done it before, and it is not fun. So it is difficult. So that's why we're taking it seriously. We would take it seriously anyway, but we really deserve it. Our system deserves it.
Correct. And so moving forward, once those 120-day notices of reduction has been, I just can't even talk about it, right? Have been put out there into the world and to the different agencies. If the levy passes, then what happens?
Well, we would still evaluate why a 120-day notice was given, because if there was programs that are ineffective or not aligned with our priorities, we'd still want them, we'd still consider them for elimination anyway, right?
Okay.
That's what we do. We don't hold on to programs that aren't effective. But the opportunity then to reduce or to eliminate some of those 120-day notices, because we no longer have to make those cuts, that pressure would be gone.
Okay.
And then, of course, then we would set our sights to how do we meet the needs of our community that we've identified in the passage of the levy.
Correct.
One of the immediate issues is going to be, Amy alluded to it, the jail treatment stuff.
Yeah.
Because while Unison is there on a federal grant, that federal grant ends in February. We won't be first collecting until, till sometime in, I guess it'd be March, right? Or March, April with the new funds. So we'll have a decision to make, and that's March and April of next year, not this year. We'll have a decision made on if we can contribute and should we contribute initially or not.
Got it.
And we're not there yet. I mean, we can't even think about that really until we know we have money, because while we have made statements of commitment that this is what we intend to do, if this levy doesn't pass, there's no way we can pick up $1 million, $1.2 million, whatever it looks like, right? Without other cuts elsewhere.
So Scott, to be clear, when 120-day notice is implemented, it will be delineated between why you're receiving this 120-day notice as it relates to the possibility of a cut in program, as opposed to actual procedures that they have to correct, change.
It could be all of that, right? It could be, I mean, because we don't know what that's gonna look like yet, but if there are structural recommendations that we might be able to save some money in. For instance, I hate to give these examples because I know that, but if there's some policy decisions that we can make to reduce, then we can do that. But if there are programs that aren't hitting their spending requirements and hitting their outcomes requirements, regardless of if we're in this fiscal situation, those programs need to be dealt with. So you might end up with that, plus just the fact that we need to get down to a certain number. And so you could technically be doing everything fine, but still be a lower priority, which is why we would come to you in January and say, okay, here's kind of the priority that we're pushing out of all the information. And again, though, even in those subcategories, not everybody would take a cut, because people perform differently, we have different priorities on that. And, what we haven't done in the past, recently, is just said, everybody take a 10% cut. We could do that. Everybody take a 10% cut, and we get down to our number. But that doesn't reward people who, organizations and programs that are meeting their marks.
Nor does it protect our priorities.
Nor does it protect our priorities, that's correct. So it's just not as simple walking in and saying, let's cut this or do that. And you got a little bit of a taste of that as we were talking about our SOAR minority funding several months ago. And so that's a similar process we'll be using. So, I just have two more quick things. We did fill our accounting position, accounting specialist position. That person should start on December 4th. But I am planning to leave my executive assistant position open because of the conversation we just had, right? The board will take, board staff will take its position to take first cuts very seriously, and we will identify a certain amount that we will take off the top, and it seems logical that we've been surviving without an executive, I've been surviving without an executive assistant for 18 months now, and there's no sense to rush into this now if we can benefit the system. So we're gonna leave that vacant until we identify how all this plays out. But, that's the last position, and so I'm pretty happy with where we're at. We do have a retirement to announce. I think she already announced it, right?
She did.
Yeah. Cynthia Brown-Sherry, our manager of prevention and support services, is that I say that right? Recovery services, is retiring at the end of the year. And she's not here today, but I'm sure she's watching at home. Hi, Cynthia, congratulations. And so we'll be seeking her replacement here shortly to fill the program position. But we'll have a little get together for Cynthia's retirement. We'll let everybody.
I was just gonna ask that.
And then finally, as I mentioned before, I don't feel compelled that we have enough substantive agenda to pull you back on December 5th, I think it is, for a planning and oversight committee. If you are okay with hearing first information at the board meeting on the 19th, and that'll allow us to do a little bit of we'll do the business that we have available, which will be routine. If there is something outside of that requires a little bit more input, I'll try and send that to you ahead of time. But even if that pops up, it wouldn't pop up between now and December 4th. So if you're okay with that, we'll cancel the planning and oversight. We'll just have one meeting in December. There will be no consent agenda. It'll be a straight board meeting, and then we always kind of do a mini Christmas celebration, which we'll plan for you all as well, if that's okay. Is that all right?
Right.
Okay, great. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Scott. All right, before we go into open session, just to let you know, we will have a executive session following that to discuss an impending legal matter. And I think you asked for a motion for that now.
Open session. Let's do open session.
You want to do open session first?
Yes.
All right. Richard?
Just briefly, as we speak over at State Council, they are approving the zone change and special use permit for the new jail. I don't know why they're bothering, because groundbreaking was 2 weeks ago. I guess it's just a formality. I honestly don't remember that ever happened. but they're making it official tonight. The Charter Review Committee attempted to meet last Thursday. This group has an attendance problem. They had this going on here. They didn't have a quorum. If they can ever achieve a quorum, they didn't even.
Hey Larry, we'll get to you in a second. We're still in session.
They didn't have a quorum. If they can ever achieve a quorum, they will send a recommendation to City Council that they hold a public hearing on the issue of reducing City Council from 12 members to 9 members. City Council can of course say, no, we don't want to do that, but they would probably look there. So I'll keep you updated on that. They can continue along this path. Briefly, I continue to read things in the newspapers that really disturb me. In Michigan, the Ethan Cumbry trial, turns out he made a lot of false statements about his parents. This is the guy that shot him around his high school in Oxford. Made a lot of false statements. So his parents, who are now on trial, their defense attorneys are jumping all over that. The woman in Virginia whose 6-year-old son took a gun to school and shot his teacher. Well, the child has obstructive defiance disorder, whatever that is. And she has schizoaffective personality disorder, and she's also addicted to marijuana. Her lawyer did ask for treatment, but she's going to get 21 months on that. The news media continues to go after the parents of people who do these crimes. This is the October the 27th USA Today. It is about the shooting in Maine. It is 43 paragraphs long, and it lists a dozen reporters that worked on it. There's not one mention of mental illness, nothing. It goes on and on about how they don't like the gun laws in Maine and stuff like that, but it doesn't mention mental illness, it doesn't mention the families. Same day, the Detroit News, which I consider to be a very balanced newspaper, same article, yes, they did talk to the family, or not the family, but the friends, that the family was well known and they were trying to get help for him. He's hearing voices, everybody in town knows he's got problems, but he couldn't get the help he needed. We are going to continue to see mental illness and family members dragged into the gun debate. For the more people who are putting forth the agenda that we should get rid of all the guns, they're going to ignore mental illness. They're only going to mention family members if they're trying to blame it on family members. For those who are against gun control, they're going to bring mental illness in every chance they get and say, no, this isn't a gun issue, this is a mental health issue. For anybody who doesn't remember, this is the Wall Street Journal. It's dated February the 19th, 2020. The significance of that date is that a month before the shutdown for the pandemic. It was in March of 20. And it's called Trump Takes a Stand for the Mentally Ill. It's Trump saying, I want to bring back long-term hospitalization for the mentally ill. If you will recall, we got a break from these shootings during the pandemic because there weren't any crowds. Everybody was social distancing. But it's being brought back, and you will see it next year. We're already seeing it, where people mention mental illness only if it's convenient. It depends upon the political agenda they're trying to push. It's either feast or famine. It's either ignore mental illness or bring mental illness and say, oh no, we don't talk about gun control. We just want to talk about mental illness. And you've got a levy coming up. I've already talked to the county commissioners about this. We just discussed it briefly. I didn't know this until last week. The new wording that the county commissioners are using for this levy is it's going to be for operation of addiction and mental health services and alcohol introduction and mental health facilities. Now, I've gone back and checked. I went back 11 years into county commissioners' office. They've always referred to it as programs. I did the same with levy review. They've always referred to it as programs. And when you voted here, you voted for programs. Here is my concern, that the facilities, that's going to confuse people. If my understanding is correct, and according to the Tina Stellan-Watts Act, this is how it will appear on the ballot. It will say that you are spending this new money for programs and facilities. Programs is self-explanatory. No explanation here. It's always been programs. But facilities, that's going to confuse the voters, and a confused voter is probably going to vote no on a new tax issue. So my suggestion to this board is if there's any way this can be simplified, shortened, whatever, but you really need to get that message out, because to just mention to the voters, oh yeah, we're going to, in addition programs, oh, facilities. What facilities are you talking? It's not specified here. This board should make sure that we get that message out, because they've never used that word facilities before. I'm going to continue talking to the county commissioners about this, but what I'm told is it will say that this money is for programs and facilities. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Richard. Anyone else? Okay, can we have a vote to go into executive session?
So moved.
For
Second.
pending legal matter. Properly moved and seconded. Roll call vote.
Mr. Arnold,
Abstain?
Ms. Banks,
Yes.
Ms. Bell,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Carter,
Yes.
Ms. Friedman,
Yes.
Ms. Howe,
Yes.
Mr. Knowles,
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Stengel,
Yes.
Major White.
Yes.
All right, thank you. We're adjourned to
Hey, folks, we're in executive Okay, we need a motion to. come out of
Okay, can we have a
executive
motion that we come out of
So
executive
moved.
session?
Second.
Properly moved and second that we come out of executive session. All those in favor, let it be known by the saying of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Any abstentions? And it is so ordered. All right, at this time, we have the recommendations before you, and Scott will read them.
Okay, so, the following motions are recommended to the Board of Trustees. The Mental Health and Recovery Services Board of Lucas County approves the settlement and resolution for case number 3:22-CV-640 brought by Rescue Mental Health and Addiction Services and pending in the United States District Court as follows. A payment of $750,000 to the plaintiff. B, an additional grant of $1 million to the plaintiff to be used for mental health and addiction services. C, a settlement and release. And D, authorizes an increase of $1,750,000 in the board's FY 2024 administrative budget. And the Mental Health and Recovery Services Board of Lucas County authorizes its executive director or a person designated by him to finalize and execute a settlement and release and all other documents necessary to finalize this settlement. And the Mental Health and Recovery Services Board of Lucas County finds and determines that all formal actions of this board concerning and relating to the adoption of this resolution were taken in an open meeting of this board, and that all deliberations of this board that resulted in those formal actions were in a meeting open to the public in compliance with the law. And the Mental Health and Recovery Services Board of Lucas County approves this resolution, approves that this resolution shall be in full force and effect from and immediately upon its adoption. And the Mental Health and Recovery Services Board of Lucas County approves an increase in the fiscal year 2024 administrative budget and allocates an additional $75,000 to Crabb, Brown and James LLP for legal fees in FY '24 and authorizes its executive director to amend their contract for that purpose. And the Mental Health and Recovery Services Board of Lucas County approves increasing its calendar year 2023 budget by $1.1 million in the charges and services budget line for legal fees and settlement to submit to the Lucas County Commissioners. And the Mental Health and Recovery Services Board of Lucas County approves increasing the calendar year 2024 budget by $1 million in the charges and services budget line for legal fees and settlement to submit to the Lucas County Commissioners.
All right, so you have heard the motions. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call for the roll call vote.
We need a
We need a
motion.
motion to
I
approve.
move that these motions be accepted.
A second.
Dr. moved and second. Now we'll call for the roll call.
Ms. Banks?
Yes.
Ms. Bell?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Carter?
Yes.
Ms. Friedman?
Yes.
Ms. Howe? Yes. Mr. Knowles?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mr. Stengel?
Yes.
Major White?
Yes.
Okay, it passes. Thank you very much. And the meeting is now adjourned.
Thank you.